It's an overnight flight from Germany to New York. Among many ordinary passengers, there are a mother and her son who share a terrifying secret from their past. But suddenly, the plane is hijacked. The passengers are in a state of panic. However, in the middle of all this, the wheel of fate turns for everyone. Because, besides the hijacking, something has happened that no one has ever seen before. Will these passengers ever be released? Or is something even more terrifying waiting for them? We are talking about the Netflix high-octane horror thriller movie, Blood Red Sky. The story begins at an airbase in Scotland where a plane makes an emergency landing. This plane had been hijacked by some terrorists, but now it has arrived there. However, the situation inside is still unknown. Soldiers are standing ready with a watchful eye, prepared to bring the passengers out safely. As soon as the plane stops, the airbase commander looks at the cockpit and sees a man sitting there. He is suspicious of whether this man is a passenger or one of the hijackers. They try to contact him, but he claims he is innocent. However, that was not believable to the commander at all. Right then, a little boy named Elias gets down from the cargo door of the plane. They begin to interrogate him, but the marks of fear and pain on his face are clear. He cannot say anything out loud. Along with this, the story goes back to a flashback. What happened inside that plane? A woman named Nadia is waiting in the airport lounge. She and her son Elias are leaving for New York. However, Nadia herself does not complete the airport formalities. She lets her young son do them. This is because she is suffering from leukemia, and this trip is for her treatment in New York. She has discussed this with her doctor over a video call. Since Elias is all alone at the airport, a gentleman named Farid comes forward and helps him. After a while, as evening falls, Nadia comes to her son, but her face is covered and she is wearing glasses. Meanwhile, she needs her medicine, so she goes to take it. But after taking the medicine, some abnormal changes are seen in her. On the other hand, the friendship between Elias and Farid grows, and coincidentally, Farid has to travel on that same plane. After that, they board the plane and it departs for its destination. As night falls, the passengers start to rest. But how long will the quiet environment last? Suddenly, a mysterious sound of trouble floats from inside the plane, terrifying the passengers. Air marshals come forward to handle the situation. Out of the three, two go to the spot, but they did not realize that it was just a trap. The terrorists kill them brutally and slowly begin to execute their plans. Among these hijackers was a cabin crew member of the plane, 8-Ball, and the co-pilot, Bastian. Bastian had already killed the main pilot by poisoning him. As a result, the plane is on autopilot. On the other hand, they disable the black box so that the plane becomes invisible on the radar. After that, their leader Berg announces that this plane is now under their control and everyone will be kept alive in exchange for ransom. Everyone on the plane is terrified of the hijackers. Then, after seeing blood on 8-Ball's body, a change appears in Nadia's behavior. She starts behaving strangely. Meanwhile, the co-pilot Bastian turns the plane toward their own destination. Taking this opportunity, Elias tries to hide himself in pain and terror. He runs around inside the plane, and Nadia sets out to find him. But unfortunately, Nadia gets caught by the cruel hijacker 8-Ball. Because she disobeyed 8-Ball's order, he suddenly bursts into a rage and fires a shot at Nadia. Seeing this scene from a distance, Elias breaks down. After that, the story again goes back to the past, many years ago when Elias was very small. One day, his mother Nadia and father Nikolai went out for a vacation in a quiet area. Everything was going fine, but suddenly their car broke down on the road. To bring help, Nikolai walked a long way from the car, but even after a long time had passed, he did not return. An anxious Nadia gets out of the car with Elias and goes out to find her husband. Walking along, she reaches a lonely cottage. Entering there, she senses the presence of a strange, unknown person inside the house. His behavior is violent and inhuman. In fear, Nadia quickly enters a room with Elias and right then sees Nikolai's lifeless, blood-stained body lying there. Suddenly, that strange man tries to enter through the window. Nadia blocks him with all her strength, and at that moment, the sun shines and he burns to death. Only then does Nadia realize that he was a vampire. But that was not the end, because before dying, that vampire bit her. That night was the turning point of her life. That day, she was no longer human. She became an unknown, cursed existence. She returns home, but starts to realize her body is changing. Her hunger is increasing. Something inside her is waking up. Teeth are coming out in a fierce form. The leukemia treatment in New York was actually an attempt to suppress her vampire form. Meanwhile, in the present, even though Nadia was hit by several bullets, she did not die. She wakes up again and enters the cargo area of the plane. A dog and a few terrorists were present there who were planning to blow up the plane with a bomb. To heal herself, Nadia unwillingly kills the dog and drinks its blood, and one terrorist sees this. Nadia kills him and stages the scene in such a way that it seems the dog killed him. On the other hand, the terrorists decide to put the blame on the passengers. So, they take Farid and another passenger named Muhammad. They are made to read a statement written in Arabic by the hijackers so that it seems the whole act was done for religious purposes. Since Farid knows how to read Arabic, he reads the message, but he reads it in such a way that it is clear he is reading it by force. When the terrorists realize this, they kill another passenger who did not know Arabic. Then they record the whole statement in Farid's voice. Meanwhile, Nadia comes back to Elias. Since there were no terrorists there, she wanted to change the direction of the plane. So she goes to the cockpit with Muhammad and Farid because they had knowledge about aerospace. On the other hand, the terrorists come to the cargo area to find the dead person, and 8-Ball realizes that this is not the work of a dog, but Nadia's, because her body was not there. He finds Nadia's syringe and becomes sure she is still alive. They quickly return and see Nadia and Elias hiding in the cockpit. They ask to open the door, but since they refuse, they kill an innocent passenger. After that, they bring a little girl as bait. However, although Nadia is still a vampire, her humanity still survives. She opens the door and attacks the terrorist leader Berg and drinks his blood. But after that, Berg himself starts turning into a vampire. Nadia knew that if he turned into a vampire, the situation would be even worse. So she kills him cruelly, and the rest of the terrorists start to flee after seeing this terrifying form of Nadia. The story returns to the past from here again, to that old house where everything started. There, an old man says that there is no way to stop this curse and he wants to kill Nadia for that reason because Nadia has killed his son. When he fires at her, she somehow saves herself and is forced to kill him, and she burns the house to end its existence. Meanwhile, back on the plane, 8-Ball finds Nadia's prescription and he realizes that she is not an ordinary woman but a vampire. Elias comes out of the cockpit in search of his mother. On the other hand, as planned, 8-Ball attacks Nadia. He overpowers her with a UV light because the UV light was working on her body just like sunlight. As a result, taking this opportunity, 8-Ball collects Nadia's blood sample. After that, he wants to kill Nadia. But at that time, Elias picks up a gun and he, 8-Ball, keeps telling Elias that his mother is harmful to society. But Elias doesn't want to hear anything, and he accidentally fires a shot, breaking the window glass of the plane. As a result, the air pressure decreases. A stock trader passenger gets seriously injured at this time. However, Bastian handles the situation within a short time. On the other hand, 8-Ball wants to turn himself into a vampire. So he hides inside a bulletproof car and starts transforming into a vampire. Nadia understands his purpose and starts firing at him. But since the car was bulletproof, she tries to burn him to death. However, as the alarm goes off, Bastian puts out the fire with a fire extinguisher. 8-Ball survives, and when the rest of the terrorists come to know about the incident, they see 8-Ball inside the car, but he is not human. After that, he bites them and starts turning them into vampires too. However, Bastian somehow escapes. Nadia comes in front of the passengers, and seeing her, everyone starts running in fear. She starts attacking the passengers and even goes to kill Farid, but she had to stop at her son's words. After that, when the vampires wanted to enter from the cargo, Farid and a former soldier blocked the door to stop the vampires, although Farid himself gets bitten. Nadia realizes that Farid will also transform into a vampire, so she cuts his hand. Since there is no one else who is human, they have to be kept locked in one place now. Since there was no other way for Bastian, He helps Farid and others and informs the control room about the situation. The fuel is decreasing, so the plane must be landed quickly. Meanwhile, the person who was injured during the time the air pressure decreased, who does not want to die, releases the imprisoned vampires and requests to be bitten. However, 8-Ball starts attacking the passengers instead of biting him. Nadia and Farid see this hellish situation from the cockpit and realize that if the plane lands, the whole city will be destroyed. They decide to destroy the plane in the sky with a bomb. But the bomb remote was with a vampire terrorist. Since the whole thing seemed impossible, Nadia wants to end herself to save them. However, Elias does not listen to anyone and wants to bring the remote with a UV torch to save his mother. He finds the remote too, but while coming back, he loses the torch, and taking this opportunity, some vampires attack him and he hides under the car, and then he comes in front of 8-Ball. Nadia realizes she has to save her son, but her strength is decreasing. So she drinks Bastion's blood and leaves the responsibility of Elias to Farid. When she goes to fight 8-Ball, 8-Ball defeats her. But at one point, when Elias turns on the bomb remote, Nadia throws 8-Ball out through the door to save Elias. However, he still tries to come up again. Then Farid turns the plane toward the sunlight, and 8-Ball burns to death in the sunlight. However, Nadia herself is now almost dead. Then Elias, to save her, cuts his own hand and gives his blood to his mother and brings her back to life. But this time, Nadia becomes even more fierce and wants to drink her son's blood. However, she somehow restrains herself and runs away. After this, we come to that first scene of the movie where we see Elias being taken for interrogation. He repeatedly says that Farid is innocent and there are many vampires on the plane. But the soldiers, without giving him importance, put him to sleep with an injection. Although Farid tries to explain, he is shot, but fortunately he survives. At night, by conducting a rescue operation, the soldiers arrest Farid. Upon entering the plane, the vampires start attacking. While taking Elias to the hospital, he gets into the ambulance with his teddy bear and somehow escapes from there. He goes near the plane and sees his mother, who is no longer like before. Elias presses the remote kept inside the teddy bear, and a huge explosion happens in the plane. The wreckage of the plane is burning in the fire, and in the distance, the police have now released Farid. Standing in the middle of the army and chaos, little Elias has smoke in his eyes, pain, and a strange realization which is far above his age. The burnt teddy bear held tight in his hand is the witness of that night's horror. Farid comes forward with disbelief and the exhaustion of the shock. That embrace is not just of two survivors, but of two hearts who have found themselves even after losing everything. However, Elias knows that a mother's love never ends. Maybe she is not with him, but even from a distance, her love will fall like flowers continuously. And with this incident, the movie ends right here.